less than 1 week before COP26 in Glasgow, we are still on track for climate catastrophe.
The UN GAP report finding that despite 120 countries bolstering their emissions targets, it's still not enough. The world on track to hit a 2.7 degree increase by 2100.
The world would need 7 times more ambition to keep us on the 1.5 degree track.
Ambition that some say is lacking in our freshly inked plan for net zero by 2050.
The heat is on.
But the government ain't feeling it.
This is how you do it. Bring down the costs of low emissions technologies, invest in the research and development. This is the Australian way. It's practical, it's achievable.
But critics aren't having it.
We got science fiction.
It's a fraud.
A story where someone rides in on a unicorn in 2049 with technology that doesn't yet exist and somehow saves us.
Why do they not have a confidence that in the next 30 years, that in the world today, Mr Speaker, we will not see technology breakthroughs which will ensure that we'll be able to close the gap? If that's the case, they should never use one of these because they don't believe they exist.
And while they duke it out in Canberra, globally we're copping it too.
Australia will be the rich world's weakest link at COP26.
Australia pledges net zero. Its plan makes that hard to believe.
Australia remains wedded to fossil fuels.
The Prime Minister has quite clearly said that this plan would not include ending Australia's fossil fuel sectors.
Well, that's just false, and I'm sorry that you need to be corrected on this.
Which part of that is false? Because it is true, isn't it?
So with the clock ticking down to COP26 and the eyes of the world upon us, is the Australian way the right way?
We're going to do it the Australian way, and we're not going to have people from overseas telling us what our economy's about and how it works.
Well, Latika Burke is our eyes and ears in London, and she joins us now. Latika, Bojo's tweeted his apparent support, but how has the Aussie plan gone down in the UK?
Look, it's fairly mixed. There's no doubt that there's recognition that the testament that it has taken Australia to get to this point where it's actually able to allow its Prime Minister to say net zero by 2050, and that Prime Minister is still in the job the next day. Everybody realises that's pretty extraordinary for Australia. But there is a lot of cynicism behind that praise because there's a lot of concern that those 2030 targets just aren't really legitimate to meet the 2050 target, and that while we're still wedded to fossil fuels, that it's not really an ambitious plan for climate change at all, and most certainly not one that is capable of leading the rest of the world.
The issue seems to be bigger than Australia though, doesn't it? Because Boris Johnson now is talking about COP26 as though there's a possibility that it might fail. Why is he lowering expectations in this way?
This has been concerning the UK government for quite some time, but because everyone in the world has been so distracted by the pandemic or focused on COVID, there's not been a lot of time and attention paid to the COP climate talks coming up in Glasgow next week. Well, now the world's attention is turned laser-like to these talks. And guess what? 2 big players aren't coming, Xi Jinping from China and Russia's Vladimir Putin. And that does make a difference. And in that respect, Australia is right to say that no matter what Australia does, no matter what Australia commits, if we can't as a global community get China to the table and make some meaningful cuts, what hope does humanity have? So certainly no one thinks that COP will be the success it might have been before the pandemic.
Well, the Queen also won't be attending following medical advice to rest, despite having strong thoughts and feelings about climate. What effect do you think that'll have?
Yeah, I think this is a really big symbolic blow for COP, actually. The Queen has been pulling out of engagements left, right and centre here for this last month. And she also, for the first time in 8 years, spent a night in hospital on medical advice. But I guess it's a stark contrast to Australia. In the UK, climate change is a politically neutral issue. So the Royals are able to come out and talk about this and goad and encourage other world leaders like Scott Morrison to sign up to net zero, to come here to Glasgow. It's a real shame that the Queen won't be there herself.
OK, we'll leave it there, Latika. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.